are starting to panic. We're used to stories about the middle class struggling, wages to keeping up, houses becoming unaffordable, everyday life feeling more expensive. But here's another story happening right now. It involves people you probably don't feel sorry. Not because of politics, not because of taxes, not because of regulation. They are panicking because they are looking at their sales numbers. They are looking at their revenue forecast. They are looking at their stock prices. And they are realizing something terrifying. The middle class is disappearing, and their entire business model depends on them. First, let's look at what's actually happening to middle class households right now. Over the past 5 years, the cost of everyday necessities has gone up dramatically. Not luxury items, necessities. The stuff you can't avoid buying. Coffee prices are up 20% in the past years, beef 16%, frozen fish up 8.6%. Now, these numbers might not sound dramatic individually, but they add up. They add up at a time when wages haven't kept pace. Then there is house, and this is the big one. A home with a yard used to be a definition of middle class success. Now, for a lot of people, it's completely out of reach. Survey found that 96% of millennials says that top barriers to become homeowner is financial. Homes are too expensive, interest rates are too high, saving for a down payment is too hard. Here's what this means in practice. When you are spending a larger chunk of your income on rent or saving for a down payment that keeps getting further away, you have less money for everything else. Less for restaurants, less for clothes, less for travel, less for the extras that make up much of the economy. A recent study from the Bank of Korea found something interesting. When housing prices rise, consumption among young people actually falls. For every 1% increase in home prices, consumption among people under 40 drops by 0.3%. So what are the middle class families actually cutting back on? Pretty much everything that isn't absolutely necessary. Restaurants. Middle class families just can't afford to eat out the way they used to. Restaurant prices rose about 6% from early 2024 through late 2025. Second, traveling. An annual vacation used to be a routine part of a middle class. Now, it's becoming a luxury. These are things that used to be normal. Eating outside, taking a vacation, replacing your phone, and now they are becoming things that only wealthier people can do regularly. Now, here's where it gets interesting for the people who own companies. Nielsen IQ published an analysis of what they call the key-shaped economy. The idea is simple. Higher income households are rising, lower income households are falling, and the middle class is splitting in two. Some becomes richer.
I do a net worth survey on the Fidelity website every week, and it just does nothing but go up. All right, my net worth keeps going up.
I own my own house. I own a couple of cars. I have everything that I really want.
The biggest slice, though, is left behind.
It doesn't really matter what I'm doing in my career or what other jobs that I'm pursuing. It just doesn't keep up with what the necessities of life are right now.
These families are frustrated at their ability to get ahead because of the rise in the cost of living. This is the key point. The economy can look okay while millions of families are struggling because the people at the top are spending so much that they can mask what's happening underneath.
This economy right now is being driven by spending from the top 20%.
But here's the problem. You can run up business class customers by relying on rich people alone. And this is where we get to the panic. Because company executives are starting to say this out loud in earning calls, in investor presenters, in interviews. Now here's where the panic really sets in. It's not just that lower income consumers are struggling. It's that the middle class market, the companies that have always depended on middle class customers, is getting crushed. A 2026 analysis put it simply. The middle market, once a cornerstone of retail growth, is now in free fall. Aspirational buyers, the people who would buy entry-level version of nicer things, have gone. Meanwhile, there are two groups that are doing very well. And this is very interesting. Luxury brands that sell to the truly wealthy, and discount retailers that sell to people who have no choice but to hunt for deals. Look at Shane, for instance. But the middle, the companies that they sell to regular families at regular prices, they are stuck. They can't compete with luxury exclusivity, they can't compete with discount prices, and their customers are disappearing. Here's the simple truth that wealthy executives are finally starting to understand. You can't build a mass market business on wealthy customers. There aren't enough of them. They don't buy enough volume. The middle class is the volume. They are the ones who make the numbers work. They are the ones that buy enough units to justify the factories, the supply chains, the retail space, the marketing budgets. Lose them, and the market stops working. There is a simple analogy that explains this. It comes from Nick Hanover, a venture capitalist who was one of the first investors in Amazon. So he's not some anti-capitalist activist. He said, the economy is that it actually is like the game of Monopoly in the sense that when person has all the money, the game is over. And in a game of Monopoly, that's quite charming. But in a real economy, it's much more problematic. That's the risk when the middle class disappears. The rich end up with all the money, but they run out of customers. And without customers, all that wealth on paper doesn't actually translate into anything real. You can't sell snacks to someone who's cutting back on groceries. You can't sell clothes to someone who's saving every dollar for rent. You can't run a business that depends on volume when the volume has evaporated. So, here's the question. If the math is clear, why didn't wealthy executives see this coming? Because for a long time, the top 10% kept spending more. The stock market kept going up. Luxury brands kept raising prices, but underneath, the foundation was cracked. And now, those cracks are visible to everyone. The people at the top are noticing now because it's showing up in their numbers. Sales are flat or down. Customers aren't coming back. Price cuts aren't working the way they used to. And they're realizing that all those years of rising prices, all those years of focusing on premium customers, all those years of assuming the middle class would always be there was a mistake.